So for years, I have avoided making square and a square blocks. Anytime I'm making a quilt, they drove me crazy. I could never get the points to match. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So selfishly, I came up with square and a square paper so I could actually make my blocks where my points match. So very easy, great to use in blocks, but today I'm gonna show you how to add like a little special touch where in the inside we add a 4-patch, which is something we haven't shown before, super fun, and it makes these patterns more versatile. So let's get into the project. This is the mini patches pillow, and I'm going to show you how you can take a mini charm pack, a 4.5-inch square and a square paper, and make this pillow. So basically your square and a square is a diamond. We're going to take these mini charm packs, turn them into 4 patches, and put them in here, and that's going to set them on point. So we are using the Bountiful Blooms collection by Sherry and Chelsea. For this background, we are using parchment crossweave, and it has a subtle woven texture, and it's going to give it that beauty that really pops with the quilting. So you're going to go to fatquartershop.com and download the free mini patches pillow, buy some mini charm packs, a background, and let's get sewing. So like I said, we're starting with a mini charm pack. I did go ahead and starch these, so they're not exactly 2.5 inches anymore, but I'm just going to show you how to make this one work. You're going to sew these two together and these two together. We're going to press open. Then I'm going to sew these together and press open. And that is going to measure 4.5. And when I come back, I'm going to show you how you trim that down. So I'll set my seams pressed to one side. Once I have that done, I will come back and press open. I'll pin this together and sew a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so I've sewn my mini charm pack together, and you can see how the outsides don't line up. That's because I starched, and when you starch, one side shrinks and the other side doesn't. So that is totally fine because we're going to trim this down. It needs to be a 4-inch square. So I'm just going to put my 2-inch line on a ruler on that center vertical seam, trim, rotate this, and then just cut it 4 inches. And then we'll do the same thing. Measure 2 inches, turn it around, and you have a perfect 4-inch square. It doesn't actually have to be perfectly 4-inch because of the next step, but we wanted to design this so that you would be able to starch. And remember, everything at this point is pressed open. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your fabric A squares, and each of them you're gonna cut on the diagonal. And that's gonna give you bias edges right here. So this is gonna be nice and stretchy, so you just have to handle it with care. So to make each unit, you need 4 triangles, 1 4-patch, and 1 square of the 4.5-inch square and a square paper. So that's what we're going to start with. So when I'm working with square and a square paper, no matter what paper it is, I'm going to crease the front on the lines. And I am just using an add 1/4 plus ruler because it has a nice paper edge. So I'm going to do that. That's going to make it where I can see where the triangles go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the paper in 4s. And what that's going to give you is a horizontal and vertical line to place your 4-patch on. So now that you've done that, you want to line up your 4-patch. So you're going to place it diagonally. The horizontal line you placed, you want it to be lined up with that, and you want the vertical line to be lined up here. So you're going to just follow that, and what I like to do is pin the center. So I'm going to find my center point of my 9-patch, go here, and I'm going to move it around until it's right in the center. And then rotate, and from there you're going to pin so that it stays. And then I'm going to leave that pin in. I've made the pin where it's in the center. My fabric is face up, and the pin does not intersect with any of these outer edges. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the paper back on line 2, trim a 1/4 inch away, and I'm going to also do that on line 3. You could do this after you sew. It's totally up to you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fabrics right sides together, and I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to sew directly on this solid line. So when you're sewing this down, I like to use an open toe foot and a short stitch length. I'm going to stitch all the way across. Now, one thing that I did do that's different is I stitched a 1/4 inch away from the start and stop of this intersection. I just do that for more security, but you don't have to do that. That's just something that I do. Remove your pin and we're gonna press. So from here, you should not use steam when you're working with the paper, so I'm just gonna press toward my triangles with no steam. Now from here, I'm gonna pull my paper back a little bit. And if you didn't sew that extra seam, you wouldn't have a problem with this. And then you're gonna take your add a 1/4 ruler, push this back, trim a 1/4 inch away. So you're not trimming too much away, just a little bit. So some people trim before they stitch, sometimes they trim after. It's totally personal preference. And to be honest, with this technique, it might take you, doing it 1 or 2 times just to get the hang of it. And on this pattern, you do use 40 of the 42 squares. So if you're nervous about doing this, maybe try your first one with scrap fabric. Make sure you get it down right before you make all of your blocks. And then from here, we're gonna sew on the remaining lines. Set your seam, press to one side, again, no steam. After you pull the paper off, you can use steam. So this is how your unit should look before you trim it down, and you could measure if you want, and it looks pretty much accurate. Now, if it's not perfect, I don't think anybody's gonna notice. And from here, all you have to do is trim on these outside solid lines. Now you have points that are exactly a 1/4 inch away, and your bias has not stretched and you don't have a wave going. So, if you use bias, sometimes you have like little waves going around your block. So this comes out perfectly. From here, you just pull your paper off. And look here, you can really see that those lines where we folded actually met up really nice. So that's really good. Pull your paper off. So once you have your paper off, you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna make 8 more. So for this pillow, you need 9 of these units. Now, if you want to, you can do a final press with steam to make it nice and flat now that you have pulled your paper off. So now I'm gonna show you tips on how to join your blocks. And if you look at this, you can see that this point matches perfectly. So each row is gonna have 3 units. So I've sewn 2 together. I'm gonna add this one. And what you'll do is you're gonna put your fabrics right sides together. So now I'm gonna use my poke a pin method. I've got 2 units right sides together. I'm gonna put my pin in the point of this unit, and it comes out right in the point. I'm going to put my other pin in the other point. Then I'm going to make my pin stand up straight like this, pin the left side and the right side, and then leaving that sitting there, pin once on the left and once on the right, and I'm going to go sew, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam. Now from here, I'm going to set my seam, press according to the pattern. With that paper, you still get all of these points matching and no mumble jumble, no big bulky seams, none of that. So it looks great. So we made our first row, and I've gone ahead and I've sewn my second and third rows together. I'm gonna put this right sides together and show you how to get all your points to line up. Now this cross weave is a light woven. So because of that, it is a little bit more stretchy, which is why it's great to use with paper, because if you weren't using paper, it definitely would be rotating a lot. So once I have these 2 pinned, I'll pin the outsides. That kind of just gives me a solid base. And then I'm gonna do poke a pin on all 3 of these. Now that we have this pinned, we're just gonna go ahead and sew with a 1/4 inch seam across. And what I do is as I get to my pin, I will remove it. I try not to sew over it, but I also try not to remove my pin too soon. And then I just look at my points and they all line up. And so now I can do my final press for the block units. Set your seam, press to one side, and you can see how perfectly all of these line up. And the way I was able to do that was using foundation paper, starching, and pinning. Also, if you want, you can either leave this pressed to one side or you can press this seam open. I think it works either way, but those 3 techniques will give you this perfect result. So now the hard part is done. All we're going to do now is add some sashing. These are fabric B rectangles. So you just lay that out, and then you're going to take your fabric D squares and put them out here. And basically what you do is you sew these 2 together with a 1/4 inch seam, these 2 together with a 1/4 inch seam, and these 2 together with a 1/4 inch seam. And when you do that, I'm going to show you how your outside will look. The fabrics are not exact, but you get the picture of having that aqua. And then you're going to press towards your cross weave, sew it together, and you can either press those away from the edge or you can press those seams open. And then you're going to press this according to the pattern, and I'm going to show you how it looks quilted and talk about some different quilting tips. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take that quilt block, you're going to layer it with soft and stable and a muslin or any type of fabric. You're not going to see it through the pillow. We just used a very plain muslin for ours. And what we did is we drew lines 3/4 inch apart all the way across this way and this way. We drew the lines with a friction pin. We stitched and we matched the cross weave to Aurifil color 5011, and we used that on the front and we also used that on the back. What you're gonna do is layer it, and then you can turn this into a pillow. If you wanna see how we turned ours into a pillow, you would follow the Home Again video that we have linked in the description box. And one thing I would say is you can see how nice this quilting shows. The reason it shows so well is we use soft and stable. It is much thicker than a batting, and it's going to give you this beautiful quilting look. If you want something less crisp, you would use a batting, but we love soft and stable, so that's how we got this beautiful look. And then we just added our binding, and it is so cute. Really quick project, a little bit more advanced, but I know you can do it. So I hope you love the mini patches pillow, and I hope you try it. It's going to expand your skills and give you a beautiful result. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.